Next on Rugby Wrap-Up, Major League Rugby with Steve Lewis, Dan Power, Bryan Ray, and guests Dylan Fawsitt and JP Du Plessis. Rugby Wrap-Up brought to you in part by The Pig and Whistle, the world's best rugby pub. The Murphy Kennedy Group, founded with the idea that construction can be done better. And Lean and Limber, stretching your way to a healthier lifestyle. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Rugby Wrap-Up. Thank you once again for joining us. This week we have a stellar Major League Rugby 2021 show before the kickoff of the regular season. I don't know if any of us here are ready for it or are really thinking that it's going to happen, but I think it's going to happen, and I think you guys think it's going to happen because otherwise you wouldn't be on this show. On this show, let's get to the guests. We have Stephen the Lizard Lewis, General Manager of Rugby United New York, two-time coach, USA Rugby Coach of the Year, head coach of Jamaica Sevens, male and female. He's with us from the Upper West Side where I am. We've got Bryan Ray. He's got the Canadian lights behind him up in Halifax, Nova Scotia of America's Rugby News. Dan Power, without a hat this week, the voice of the voice of the week with CBS Major League Rugby's Game of the Week. But he's a pundit extraordinaire from Australia originally. And we have none other than Jacques-Philippe Du Plessis of the NOLA Gold, the star of Major League Rugby, with us this week. JP, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
All right, JP, just to straighten things out, there seems to be a little bit of confusion about your name because in Wikipedia's got some other things going on, like the order of it, but they're just calling you JP. Can you comment? Can we clear this controversy up once and for all?
Yeah, look, my parents love me, but I think they kind of burdened me with many names. Of which they tell me, those in South Africa, there's a tradition. You have your grandfather's names and your father's names and stuff. So in my passport, it's actually Philippus Jacobus Snyman, which is my grandfather's names. But as my name, which what people call me, is actually Jacques Philippe, which is JP. So I don't know if that makes sense at all, but that's just the way it is. My wife still doesn't believe me.
Have you been getting free stuff posing as Philip Snyman?
I tend to stay away from my passport names. I just think it's previous generation.
All right.
So yeah, we keep that one side.
All right. That's enough of a show right there. We got that all cleared up, right?
Yeah, 100%.
We have the panel that's got questions for you, but just for the folks at home, JP was with the San Diego Legion last year. He is the 2019 Back of the Year in Major League Rugby. You've had runs with Montpellier in the top 14.
Yeah.
Raymond?
So in 2013, I was with Montpellier. Didn't play much. I done my knee actually just before that with Western Province before I head over to Montpellier. But yeah, I spent about 13, 14 months there.
And then you also had a run with the Free State Cheetahs, right?
Yep. So then I followed to the Cheetahs and actually ended with the Southern Kings in Super Rugby in Port Elizabeth. Yeah.
But I want to go back a little bit because I know Dan is giddy about this, but you had a run with the Sydney Roosters.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did. And to be honest with you, I got a rude awakening with my first ball carry because I actually got concussion. I ran into in between two New Zealand Islander boys, and they just basically put me down and, said, "Welcome to league, mate." And from then on, I realized I was in a different sport.
I want to know about the trade, JP, because as far as the profile of the trade, I'm sure there were some smaller ones that had happened, but you were like the first marquee player that actually got traded.
Yep.
Tell us through that from your perspective. How did you find out, and how did it all go down to go from San Diego to NOLA?
Dan, to be honest, without getting into too much depth, we were in a situation where, I think Legion was, with my whole family and everything. I think the package got a bit big, and after COVID and everything, I think there was like a whole thing where, they kind of just said to me that we can offer you a contract, but it'd be less. And at that point, it just didn't make sense for me anymore because back in South Africa, I've got restaurants and stuff, so I'm leaving all this kind of behind. at that point I said, I can't leave for that money. And then it also wasn't going to cover the flights for my family and stuff. And at that point I kind of said to them, is it okay if I start looking for other opportunities? And, they said, by all means. And then NOLA obviously approached me and said, we'd love to have you over. And they offered me the 4-year deal. And, at that point, to be honest, I loved the way NOLA played. I thought I'd fit into the style of rugby easily. Plus, I'm from back in South Africa, I think our culture is very much like down south, very more, I think, conservative and stuff, where, I see my kids being raised. Yeah. And there was a lot of little things that in my perspective that I thought would fit well. And, we made the decision and said, it's best for our future in the league as well, along with a long-term commitment. I love the league. I love playing in this league and we love the United States. So, that was just the best option at that point.
That's a pretty formidable backline that you're part of.
Yeah, 100%. So I do think we've got a really, really good backline. And what's great is not just the starting backline. We've got, a whole line, backing the starters, where, each player in that backup line, backline can just slot in anywhere and make just as big of an impact. So look, to be honest, the depth is actually, so you can have a great team, but what's going to carry you, I think, throughout the season, and especially towards the end of the season, is your depth and the ability for these players to slot in. So look, I think we've got a great team. The forwards has impressed me, the structure, everything that they've worked on, and the hard work that they've put in, it's just really come to show towards this end of the preseason.
Yeah, 4-year deal, that's great. You got to jump at that.
Yeah,
I would.
100%.
Question for you. Dan's question was terrific, but who would you consider your most challenging or awkward opponents thus far in Major League Rugby?
To be honest with you, I think up until 2019, or in 2019, which was probably the year that I completed, I would have definitely said, there'd be a lot of players that kind of stood out and actually was really, really challenging. But Tristan Blewett, I think, just stood out for me in that 2019 season. Someone who really stood out and that I would say, listen, if I played him, you really got to be on your toes. And a player that I, actually think if they had made it to the finals, could have been the back of the year. 2019, I moved to 2020. I moved to 13, which was a bit of a different ball game. Faced Rene Ranger there, and there was a couple of players obviously that stood out there, obviously with the experience and stuff. But obviously with the season being cut short, it's really difficult to say. But look, to be honest with you, I think what's amazing to see is how all these players are starting to come into the league and starting to stand out, and to see how the league is growing in terms of that. But in all essence, I think Tristan Blewett was probably the center that stood out the most for me so far.
Great. And just a quick follow-up. A young American player that takes your fancy that you think's got a chance to. Yeah.
So I actually I rate and he's on NOLA as well, Devon Short, quite highly. I think as a just a general rugby player, the amount of speed that he's got, how agile he is, how strong he is over the ball, his defense, the lines he runs, for someone who has only been in the game for about 3 or 4 years. And when I joined Legion, it was the first year as well, and he had just basically started, playing rugby, or actually, obviously first professional rugby was 19 at the time. Someone that really impressed me for someone who just joined and come from a background of football. I think the amount of talent that I saw in him was really impressive. So I think he's definitely someone that, as I think the season will go on, and all, the league, the cup, as the years go on and he gains more and more experience, I think he's definitely going to be one of the players to look out for.
Thank you to JP. We got to take a quick break.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
Been blind since I was 4. And I've never seen a beer commercial or a beer label. None of that stuff influences me. I drink beer because of the taste. And my beer is Pabst Jack's Blue Ribbon. It has the taste and the flavor.
What do you think's on the label?
I think there's a naked woman riding on a unicorn, jumping over fire. Oh, that's good beer.
So, JP, obviously you got some great moments ahead in a NOLA shirt, but I want to turn back the clock for just a second here to June 2019. You scored a try in the 78th minute of a semifinal. I want to know if that's the greatest moment of your rugby career, and why is it because you knocked out New York?
Sorry, Steve. I'm going to be honest here.
Can I curse on my own show? Can I curse?
I don't know what to say. Should I rather say no comment?
No.
Matt, you gave me that advice.
No, you got a free pass here, pal. You're golden.
Right. Look, to be honest, I definitely think there was many moments in that season that stood out, but that was, obviously one of the ones that did stand out for us. And for me personally, as a player, to have that opportunity, it was just a bounce of the ball. There was no real actual, brilliance or it's basically the luck that came our way, and to be able to score that try, but then still have to be dependent on Joe to slot the kick and get those points. I see Joe, was effortless. But anyway, so that was definitely one of the greatest moments of not only my major league career, but of my life. Definitely.
How did you feel about the atmosphere at Torero Stadium in that game, and also the final against Seattle? Even though Seattle won at the end, but the crowd was a huge, massive crowd, the biggest, close to the biggest we've seen in MLR. So, how did that atmosphere feel for you?
Amazing. To be honest, what really impressed me is to see how many, how people are getting behind the league and coming out to watch the games. And the whole atmosphere at Torero was really great, because it wasn't a huge stadium, right? So you got your what was it, 6,000 or 7,000 people, 6,000 something, just right on top of you, and they're going crazy. So it was an amazing experience, and I think anyone who came to play at Torero can kind of testify to this. It's really an amazing facility, an amazing stadium, and I think it creates a really good atmosphere for rugby to grow, because fans come there and they watch the game, and afterwards they get to meet the players and hang out with the players, which is obviously now probably different this year, but I think that in itself really get people to buy into it and love the game and come back, which is what we ultimately want.
What was the biggest difference between the two organizations for San Diego and NOLA? Was it night and day walking in? Facilities and culture?
Look, to be honest with you, I think at this point, NOLA was probably more, this year and with the facilities that they had was probably better, in the sense that everything happened in a close proximity. Everything was literally about 5 minutes drive, where at Legion we had to drive, about 20 minutes to the gym, then 20 minutes that way, then run on the field there, which is, obviously it's the beginning of any league. It's always going to take time. We've got the clubhouse at Legion, and we were going to put the field up at the back and the gym at the bottom. So it was all coming. But I think NOLA was just, at that point more, I'd say, settled with the clubhouse, the gym just down the road, the field just down the road, and now we're actually at the stadium, the Gold Mine, so which is a massive, I think, step in the right direction for the club.
Gold Mine on airline.
Yeah, it's right on airline. Yeah, well, no, it's the Gold Mine, so we're digging gold there, apparently. So
perfect. Dan, I think you might have another question, but I just wanted to make a quick observation. If George Clooney and Colin Farrell had a son, it would be you.
Okay.
Just pointing that out. I think that's a compliment, by the way.
So it's a compliment.
Yeah. No, it's a compliment.
Where's my wife? Can you say that again?
Two very good-looking men. I know Dan. That was on the tip of Dan's tongue. He was too shy to bring it up.
Yeah, I actually watched a documentary with Arnold Schwarzenegger where he had a baby, so it could be possible. Maybe talk to Clooney and Colin Farrell, see what happens.
That's
Pretty sure it's a documentary.
That's a compliment. Yes. Yeah. Bring some muscle into it, right?
Yes. Hercules in New York. Just watched that the other day. What a flick. Should have won an Oscar, at least 2. Hey, let's go back to that kick from Joe Peterson, because I was in Seattle doing the other semi-final, and we were all in the truck watching. You scored almost unanimously in the truck. We were like, he's going to kick it.
Yeah.
On his bad side from the sideline. They're like he's going to kick it. How did you guys feel when he's the same thing? You're walking back. Was it just like Joe just doesn't miss these kicks in these moments?
We're going to talk about this all day. Are we going to talk?
Sorry,
about
Steve.
Yeah,
technically, Steve, you didn't work for New York then, so
when I was there, and
you got hired because of this, Steve. You know, if they win, you don't get a job. So you should be thanking JP for scoring that try. And Joe,
I was the only guy making noise in the stadium, going Noonan.
Yeah. To be honest with you, 100%, Dan. Like you nailed it. Joe is just a player that when he's got these kicks, he really misses them. Sometimes you ask yourself, is this guy human when he kicks? Like, it's just he's so accurate. So I remember actually turning around and thinking to myself, like I was closing my eyes and I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm not going to look. I'll listen to the crowd. But still had that sort of calmness and belief that Joe will get it. So that's like when we scored that try, we kind of already celebrated because we knew that Joe was going to take the kick, and we knew most likely 80% chance that he was going to convert. So that was the feeling on the field, 100%.
Did Joe kick that kick kick the drop goal too early?
Final 2019.
Yeah. 29 JP. Would you rather kept the ball and worn down the clock, or did you like the fact that he went for the drop goal? Now that you're not his teammate, you can comment honestly.
Yeah. It's funny you're asking this question, because till to this day, that's probably one of the things that has haunted me the most, to be honest. Because, look, Joe kicked the drop goal at the perfect time. And, we got out of that 3-point danger, and, there was a minute and maybe a half left, I think, on the clock. Yeah. So
just about 2 minutes or to under 2 minutes.
Yes, 100%. So at that point, I called the ball from the kickoff, and I remember Joe calling it as I caught it to play him deep to kick it out. I think at that point we both kind of. I don't think it was like I won't say it was like a blurred moment, but I don't think we actually realized. Listen, we can just hold on for a minute and just let the clock run out. We were so ecstatic about the drop goal that we ran back and we're like, okay, great. Now we just, don't make any mistakes or whatever. So we didn't actually, I think, pick up, let's hold on to the ball. So, which is weird because, Joe's got how many years of experience? I've got some experience. So I'd say that was probably one of the worst moments of my career by a mile. Just to think that if we had held on to the ball. And the funny thing is that week we actually trained, what if we take the lead and there's 5 minutes left? So we actually trained it and we set up phases, held on to the ball, try to get a couple of guys to poach the ball, but we trained it and we could have just done it easily.
Well, it took 2 penalties on that, on one play to seal your fate. And then Seattle still had to drive all the way down and get the try. And in the stadium, it was an exhilarating moment in all of the rugby that I've ever watched, but especially live, to see him do that drop goal. And I was down on the field, and then Seattle come down and score. Stunning moments for the league, really.
No, yeah, exactly. Look, it's great for the league. No one would have predicted that ending, right? So it was, it was a great game and great ending. But it is what it is. So.
I just want you to remember that it was Matt McCarthy who ripped the scab off that horrible memory from 2019 for you.
Well, you guys kept bringing up the kick, the Peterson kick from the corner.
That was a semi-final, though.
Whatever. It's
good moment, happy moment.
It's painful.
It's a good moment. It's a happy moment. But the good thing is, I'm now with NOLA. We've got a great side. We've got a great season coming up. I'm pretty sure of it.
And you got NOLA Nate Osborne, that secret 100%. Weapon in coaching.
Yes, 100% true.
All right. Mr. Jacques-Philippe Du Plessis, merci beaucoup.
Merci, monsieur.
Hey, gang, we got to stop here. We're way over. And what we're going to do is have Dylan Fawsitt's interview where he is pitch side at Rugby United New York training separate. So make sure you check that one out. Thank you, Mr. JP Du Plessis. And be sure to check out our other segments this week featuring WWE legend John Bradshaw Layfield in our first ever Major League Rugby sports betting show, and our young guns, Colby Marshall in his martial law, Zach Lanning in his Zach attack, and of course, our esteemed guests, Mr. Stephen Lewis, Mr. Daniel Power, and Mr. Bryan Ray. And please, please, please sign up for our Rugby Wrap-Up American Red Cross Blood Donor Team. Stay with Rugby Wrap-Up.